All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mile 17 podcast. My name is Colton. I'm your host, and I have with me today my cousin Stephanie. She's technically my mom's first cousin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
first
always
cousin.
just say cousin because it's
Yeah,
too hard to.
so much easier,
Yeah.
right? Your dad, and my mom's dad, brothers, right? So
No, no, no. Oh, yes. Yes.
yes,
That's
okay, so
correct.
yeah.
Gary.
Right,
Yep.
right. Okay, so that's why I have on today. Stephanie's been so gracious to share her journey with us. She has some pretty exciting things to share, and the reason that I really wanted Stephanie on today was because I just feel like watching your journey on social media, and I know you've been through just so much in your life, and I just think it would be awesome if you could just share with everybody just the things you've gone through and kind of just like go through the life that you've lived up to this point. So if you could just start off with just kind of telling us like where you're from, where you grew up, and kind of talk about that.
Yeah. That's always been a hard question for me
Yeah.
because technically I'm from Safford, Arizona. I was born and raised, and it is the town that literally nobody leaves. I mean,
Right.
they might shoot on up to northern Arizona or the White Mountains for a bit, but they always come back. So I spent the first, I was about 19 or 20 when I left and I moved to Utah. Um, there, I met my husband and we moved to Midland, Texas and got married. And we had a brief stint in Iowa that lasted about a year. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Did you guys
I've
meet? Did you guys meet in college?
Colton, I'm old. Like,
Long time ago, huh?
yes, yes. Like sometimes when I talk about like where I'm from and how I grew up, like I literally have to stop for a minute and I I will cut out like periods of like 10 years. Like
Right.
they just didn't happen.
I mean, it makes
'Cause
sense. I mean, it's like a whole nother life. I mean, as people, I mean, you
yes.
just go through so many different things that it's like things also get jumbled up in your brain too. I mean, I'm only 28 and things already are getting like jumbled up as like
Yeah.
where they like were and like the time in my life. So I totally get it. But
This
you
is
and
the first year I forgot how old I am. I
that's
couldn't
amazing.
decide. My birthday is next week, and I couldn't decide if
Oh,
I
happy
was
birthday.
46 or I still don't know.
What you
46 or 47.
what year were
Yeah,
you born?
1978.
1978. Okay. So 46.
Okay. I will
Right.
be 46.
You will be 46. Yes.
Yes, that
Nice.
sounds better than 47. Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
I skipped a part when we got married. We got married in Arizona, but we lived in Midland, Texas for a little bit. Then we moved to College Station. My husband graduated from Texas A&M University, and I had my first three babies in College Station. And then we um, we moved to Iowa for a year,
I
and then
didn't
it
know
was
that.
it was back to Midland, Texas, and we stayed in Midland, Texas until 2010, and then we moved overseas to Kazakhstan.
Okay.
Uh, so we lived there for 4 years, and then from Kazakhstan we moved to England, and we lived there for 4 years, and then in 2018 we moved to Utah. So we literally did full circle.
Quite the journey. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a perfect kind of segue into I want to know like what it was like moving overseas because for a lot of people, I mean, most people don't do that in their lifetime, and so I'm really interested in you went to Kazakhstan first. That's how you say it, right? Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan.
And that's
Yes.
in Asia.
It's called Eurasia.
Okay.
So
Okay.
our the city we lived in was literally on the Ural River.
Okay.
So our neighborhood was in Asia, and on the other side was Europe.
Oh, wow. That's
So
very
we
interesting.
got
Okay.
to go back and forth,
Best of
like
both
just
worlds.
to go grocery shopping. Yeah, and it was
Nice.
fun. It was fun to go on a walk and cross the bridge.
Yeah.
I'm
And
in Asia. No, I'm in Europe.
I
Yeah.
mean, so at this point, you had 3 kids, or you had all 4 at this point?
I had all four.
All 4. So how was that
Yes.
moving, like, 4 kids across, like, to a different country?
Well, I really don't know anything different.
Okay.
So, um, my husband works for Chevron, and honestly, I found the overseas move with Chevron easier than a, a move within the same city by ourselves.
Really? Okay.
So it
Did you
was a
take all your
lot of
stuff with you?
no. We could only take, I think it was 1,000 pounds, maybe. We we purchased a few, like a few furniture pieces that they didn't already have there. Um, but they packed up one box that would be delivered to our new home like 3 months later because it had to go through many like customs.
Okay.
And then we had one like package that was, it was a box that would fit like a big flat screen TV and a few other things.
Okay. So
So we had
really
one of those, and then
okay.
the rest we had our suitcases. It's two big suitcases
So
per
really
person.
you're kinda going over there and just, like, kinda, like, starting over. I mean, really, I mean, you have, like, your clothes, your
Yeah.
essentials, and stuff like that. Did they have, like did they provide some kinda, like, housing company housing for you, or was it just
Oh,
kinda like you find your
going
own?
overseas financially was the best thing we ever did
Okay.
because we literally like we gleaned through our stuff, and they paid for storage. So we put the sentimental items and just things that we thought we'd want to see when we came home.
Right.
And we could have had a yard sale or something, but it was very fast. The move was like 3 weeks.
Wow.
So we literally just gave our stuff away.
Yeah. Yeah.
We gave our car away. We gave,
What?
yeah, like we just, all the stuff that we didn't actually need, we just called up our family and we're like, come get this stuff because it's got to go.
That's kind of, like,
And
freeing
so,
though to just be like you literally just have, like, you and your, like, essential
yeah,
things and, like, nothing else. Like, that almost sounds like oh my god, like, that sounds, like, so freeing.
it was blissful. It
Yeah.
was so blissful. And it took a couple of months, but we didn't have a house payment. We basically didn't have any expenses except for like the internet. I don't know,
Jeez.
whatever
Yeah.
extra we wanted. So we took all of the money that we made and we sold the house and we paid off all our debts and we were just
That's
free. Yeah.
Geez, that's amazing. So, you guys got
Yeah.
to Kazakhstan, and then how long were you there for?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. We were
And then
there
from
for
there
four
to
years.
England, and then you went to England.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did
And
you how was
In Kazakhstan, sorry to go backwards,
Yeah,
but
no, go.
you're only allowed to be in the country for 90 days at a time. So we would either have to send our passport away to have them stamp it, just to kind of keep their eye
Right,
on us. You know, they
right.
don't want you coming in and just staying.
I see.
Or the alternative was
Take a
to
vacation.
go somewhere for 5 days, come in and out. And so they literally told us, here, we're giving you enough money for 2 vacations per year and a home visit. And if you budget it right, then you can leave every 3 months. So it's like actually
Right, yeah,
three, right?
right.
Um, so we went on tour of wherever we wanted, everything paid for. They just gave us a
Jeez,
chunk of money and said,
that's
if you
amazing.
want to go to Istanbul and
Like, here you
stay there
go.
for 5 days, it's like, then you can keep the money. But we were like, me and my husband we've always valued experience
Right.
over stuff,
Other things, right.
things. So we blew it all.
Yeah, as you should. Oh my god, yeah, that's I
Because
mean,
we're
why
like,
not?
we don't know when we'll have this chance again.
Right,
So
right, and
yeah,
who gets those kind of opportunities? I mean, like, literally nobody. Like, that's literally, like,
yeah.
it's such a gift, especially, like, for you guys, and I don't know, like, were your kids able to go with you? Like, did you always go as a family, or did you guys
Oh,
sometimes just
always.
always? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
my
for
kids
them to
were
have that, yeah, that's
they were
like
able to travel with school. They went on school trips. Um, my oldest daughter, like she went to Turkey. She went to a space camp, like a NASA type space camp, for a school field trip. And then my other daughter went to Barcelona, I believe, and together they visited Eastern Kazakhstan.
nice.
So
Yeah, like, these are, like, things that, like,
yeah,
yeah, you would never think of, like, like, for them, like, what experiences to, like, culture them and just, like, give them, like, worldly perspectives and, like, just see,
yeah,
like, other ways of life, and I just think, that's so amazing. I'm sure now that, like,
yeah.
do they appreciate those experiences that they had and, like, realize now that they're in the
So
States, like, wow. Like,
they they didn't quite uh, they didn't quite grasp how unique that was,
right,
and how special that is at the time.
right. I mean, understandably, so that's their kids
So
and yeah,
yeah, and so I've spoken with them, and my daughter Emily said like she was really excited to come back to the U.S. so that she could do homecoming and football games and have the U.S. high school
sure,
experience.
sure,
But she said in retrospect, like, I can't believe we could just head on over to Paris whenever we felt like it.
right,
And whenever they studied something, it wasn't like she was for one of her classes, the history classes. They in England, they had a segment or a section on architecture and chapels. So she had her dad drive her around and visited
jeez,
1,000-year-old chapels, in England.
right,
And yeah, so she said, I obviously she just got married, and they're both engineering students.
nice.
And
Following
so
dad's footsteps, right? He's
they
an
yeah,
engineer.
they don't have a penny to their name right now, so
Yeah,
traveling's not in the books. And
right,
she said she misses that part.
yeah,
What I've learned, um, is that you can do it all. You can do everything you want. You can't do everything at once, right?
right,
It's just not possible.
right,
And so, whenever they would feel feel sad about, especially when we were living in England, they had friends in the U.S. and their friends were doing all of these American things
right,
on something as little as driving.
yeah.
In England, you can't even apply for your license till you're 17,
Oh, really?
and
Okay.
it's really difficult.
It's tough to get.
It is hard to get that license. And
Really?
Lauren was almost there.
Oh. Do
But then we
they
moved. So something like that, they're like, we can't even drive a car. I'm like, well, you can't drive a car, but just last weekend you took the train, a 5-minute train ride over to Windsor Castle and
right,
watched Meghan and Harry
right.
travel down the. You stood outside for their wedding. I mean,
Like, come on, yeah. I and
like,
I get that. I'm putting trying to
yeah,
put myself in, like, a teenager's mind, and, like, I get, like, the perspective of,
yeah,
like, seeing these other lives, and that's the thing with social media, you see people and you're like, "Oh, like, I
yeah,
want that," and maybe not, like, appreciating exactly, like, where you're at in your life,
yeah.
but, like, I think as, like, they get older and, like, you're even saying now they look back and they're like, "Okay, maybe maybe that was a little bit cooler, like, that I was able to do
Mhm.
that versus, like, driving." But like I remember like that time in life and just like the excitement of things like being able to drive and the
Mhm.
homecomings and but like what an experience is like,
But
for them to have.
driving, like, that's important too, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I always, to put it into perspective, I just told them, look, like, you can't have all the experiences at once, and sometimes you're trading one experience at the expense of another one.
it's a good way to look
And
at it.
so, like, you are where you are, right? Just make the most of what you have access to.
Right,
Yeah. I I tell myself that every day because I always said I would never live in Utah again. I
right,
hate it.
Yeah.
I hate this place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and but every day I'm like, well, I can sit here and feel sad that I have to live here and I can't live overseas with my husband,
Right.
or
You
I
can just
can do,
make do.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to go back to school. I was in school for a while, and I'm switching schools right now, but I'm in the U.S. for a short chunk of time, so I might as well finish my degree while I'm
Right.
here, right?
Right.
But
Are you
so
so
yes,
wait,
we moved to England. I didn't get to that part.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So talk about it. So why did you guys
Yeah.
move from? I always have a hard time saying Kazakhstan,
Kazakhstan. Yeah,
Kazakhstan. You guys moved
Kazakhstan.
from there to England, and why did you? So why did you move there? Did you have to? Was it like company, like you guys had to go somewhere, or did you choose to go to England?
So, and back to the Kazakhstan. An easy way for me to remember was the word Kazakh, and then you
Kazakh.
just
Oh,
add stand, because
Kazakh. Okay.
each of those stands are like their country and then stand. So
Okay, that's easy. I can remember that.
yeah, Kazakh
Kazakhstan.
stand.
Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan.
Anyway, just two words, it might help.
Kazakhstan.
So
Yeah.
Chevron generally does their overseas assignments in periods of 4 years. I don't know why, but that's the way it is. So every 4 years, when you're an expat, you're moved to somewhere else. So
Oh, okay.
the
So you so
project, yeah, the project that my husband worked on, I'm trying to think of why we picked England. I remember why
because
now.
it's England. Because it's
Well,
England.
yes, I didn't, but the thing was, I didn't know England was like so magical.
Okay.
It was just another cool place to live. But
Sure.
our kids, the little camp we lived in Kazakhstan had kindergarten through 8th grade. And they've just basically told us, we don't have anything for your teenagers. So, and they're a huge liability. So
Oh,
we don't want you living here
I see.
if you
Yeah.
have teenagers, unless you're willing to send your kids to boarding school. And we discussed it at lengths. And I just wasn't ready to be removed from my
Sure.
kids.
Yeah.
So
Totally understandable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we went over it with them too. If they would have wanted to go to boarding school, we probably would have made it work. But then Chevron said, "Hey, why don't you just move to England? Because England was where all the boarding students from Kazakhstan, they all went to Tassis. We basically moved and lived within a short 10-minute walk from the school that my kids would have gone to
Oh,
if
okay.
if they were in boarding school. Does that
Okay.
make
I see.
sense?
That makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was fun because all of the kids that they knew from Kazakhstan
Oh,
would
yeah.
board at
Yeah.
Tassis. So
Okay.
they were just like, "Hey, we were
Well,
just in school yesterday, and now we're in school
yeah.
in England here."
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, that makes total sense. So they had some familiarity and like something to like some like to bring with them versus like going to this like
Yeah.
new place not knowing anybody.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, and it worked out that the project my husband was working on had um, a place in England. So he was able to
Yeah.
easily make the transition. And the reason we came back to the US is because uh, our last little six month bit in England, he was actually doing rotational work in Kazakhstan. I don't know if that
So
makes any sense.
he was going like back and forth from England to Kazakhstan.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
found ourselves in the same position as before.
Okay.
And they told us, well, we can't secure your visa if you're not actually working in England.
Oh.
So
So you had to move.
you have to move back to Kazakhstan and send your kids to the boarding school. or move back to the US.
Okay.
And my kids wanted to move back to the US.
So you kind of like had the discussion as a family and kind of let the kids decide what was best for if they wanted to go like
Eh,
American school, if they wanted to go like American school, or if they wanted to board, or was it more just like we're just going to go back to the
no,
U.S. and
I think at that point we decided we were going back to the US.
okay,
But I was so petty about it, um, because England feels like my home.
okay. Were you in
And
what part of England? Were you in London, or were you?
we were just outside of London. Well, it's a 45-minute train drive.
Oh, you were closer to
So
Windsor, right?
closer to Windsor.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, you told me that. Yeah, okay.
So the estate that Windsor is on, the long walk,
Uh huh.
um, that's right by our house.
Okay.
So I guess it would be the west end of it because it's a pretty big chunk of land.
Okay.
But that was the estate I would walk my dog in every day. And it was paradise because
Yeah.
they just don't keep their dogs on leads.
Yeah.
Their dogs are just a part of
Yeah, that was
the
we went to when we were in London, and we were like we would go walk Hyde Park every day, and like the dogs were just running off, like they were just free. It was like, oh my
yeah,
god, this is so
and
amazing.
they're socialized like at birth,
Yeah,
So
right.
when we would go to the park, our dog was never on lead, and they would do the walk up, the bump noses, bump rears, say hello, wag their tails, and keep walking. And that was just like boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom, boom. So we moved here, and my dog attempts this, and it's like complete chaos, and there's
right.
dogs barking behind fences. That's one thing you'll never see in England.
Interesting. Yeah,
You will
interesting.
not see a dog alone in the garden
Yeah,
because why would you put a family member outside and just let them bark? Like,
right,
it's just insane. So
right.
my poor dog, she didn't understand what was going on with this new place. Like, why are all these dogs trying to kill me from
Yeah,
behind the fence, and they're in distress? Somebody go
yeah,
free them.
right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I'm sure that was an interesting. So you have Juno. You had her in England.
We got her in England.
Oh,
She's
okay.
English.
Okay, I didn't know
Yes.
that. How
Yeah.
long have you been back in Utah?
Since 2018.
2018, so about okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And so I was so petty about it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go. And so my husband, he's like, hey, Steph, we got to move. Like, where do you want to move? Like, we didn't have a place. So
Right.
it was like, well, like somewhere in the US. I didn't
Yeah.
know. I just
Right.
didn't know. And my daughter, Emily, she's like, well, can I pick? Because we're going to high school and I would like to pick.
Is it
She
because
even picked our house.
she knew people there?
Yeah. So we had, trying to think, at the time that we were moving, we had missionaries from the US that were socializing with Emily a lot.
Like outside of like Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about, let's say, a 30-minute drive.
Okay.
So it's a suburb of Salt Lake City where we
Okay.
live. And it's actually worked out quite nice because at the same time, Lauren was accepted to BYU. So
So you all could still kind of be family
yeah.
unit there, yeah.
hmm
And
So
Jason has
we
to
moved
go.
here, and then she moved in at BYU, and then later on, Emily and Zachary have moved to Utah State University, which is in Logan. It's like 2 hours
Okay.
north of us.
So everybody's still pretty close, and Jason
Mhm.
still has to travel for work, so he's gone. How long has he gone at a
Yeah.
time?
So he was working in Kazakhstan. Now he's working in Angola,
Okay.
Africa. So
Nice. Yeah.
he's gone for about 4 weeks at a time.
And then home for
Home for 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Okay. So
Yeah.
how does he like that? It's tough.
It's always worked well for us
Okay. Yeah.
because we just don't do anything normal. Like
Yeah.
we live big.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it because when he's home, he's home.
Right.
Um, I think the only thing we miss out is the quiet moments, that every day just kind of winding down and
Sure.
having, yeah, like in Iowa, um, the culture there is really slow and relaxed. And the thing to do, I remember our neighbors, every day they would have a beer on the front porch.
Yeah.
So that I miss that sort of relaxed lifestyle.
I see. Yeah.
And
I mean,
so,
that makes sense.
yeah.
I mean, because you mean like him being home, like to have like that time at like in the evening together to like do something, just like to be together in the evening and like
Hmm.
those moments. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for kind of going back to when you were living overseas, I kind of wanted you to talk about if you're comfortable. I know that you had gotten sick whenever you were over there. Were you in England or were you in Kazakhstan?
So, do you mean sick
You were
by
I know you were
cancer?
diagnosed with cancer. Yes.
Yeah. So, I was diagnosed with cancer while living in Texas.
You were in Texas
I
still.
was in Texas.
So this was before you even left.
So, this was before my daughter was born.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
no, right after my daughter was born.
So you had one kid and
Sorry. I had three kids.
three kids.
Three kids.
Okay.
And, oh, sorry. No, I'm telling you lies. I
It goes
had four.
it
I
goes
had four kids.
girl, boy, girl, right? That's how your kids
Yes.
go. And you have to get
Yes.
all four.
So I had three C-sections. Um, and the third one, my son, the doctor said, "Hey, your uterine tissue was so thin that I could see the baby through it." And he's like, I don't think we can get any more kids out of here.
No more. Yeah.
Yeah, no more. And I was okay with that, right? Until I wasn't. And so I found a doctor in Midland that said, I I think that you could carry one more, but I don't want you to be one of those people that's always like one more, one
Right.
more, one
Right.
more. So I agreed that he could do a tubal ligation during the cesarean. So anyway, I had my youngest, Colby, um, in 2008.
Okay.
So they had because I was at risk for rupturing. They took her just as soon as she was able to, you know,
Like they didn't want her to
like
go full term and just like
no.
because of the risk of
At
like rupturing
mhm.
uterus.
At 36 weeks, they did an amniocentesis and
Mhm.
found whatever protein is there that says the lungs are capable. So she struggled a bit when she was born because she was 4 weeks early.
Okay.
But they took her 4 weeks early so that you she wouldn't get too big.
And what
And
year was this
also,
that she was born?
also we didn't want labor to start. I generally start contracting around 23 weeks,
Oh,
and so
wow.
that's a lot of laboring.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
What year was Colby born?
2008.
Okay. And this is
So this leads into the cancer
I see.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had been having symptoms, uh, but the doctors wouldn't like
Like while you were pregnant, you were
investigate.
having like
Yes.
you were okay.
I was having intense pain, like right on the top,
Okay.
um, where your large intestine, the transverse colon sits.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they just assumed that it was from just pain
Being
from
pregnant.
contracting and being
Mhm.
pregnant. Yeah. But I remember the intense pain, feeling like I was just going to die. Um, and and then she was born, and it kind of it didn't ease up, but when you're feeling so much pain, you don't differentiate. um, you're just in pain. I don't
Right.
know if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And then she was a year old, and I noticed that my milk was just, it looked like skim milk. I was in pain all the time. I was weak and just people kept asking me if I was pregnant again because I had that look of someone that's pregnant and doesn't know it, the
Right.
exhausted and nauseated and just
Like feeling
barely
unwell.
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I went to a GI doctor. I had an actual lump because the tumor they removed was the size of a softball.
Jeez.
So, um, I, still to this day, I can't believe how badly I was treated and ignored.
Right.
Because I came in and I told him like I got to do something because I can't eat. I'm in so much pain, and he literally told me I had too many kids.
Was this by your OB?
No, this was
Your
a
prime.
GI doctor.
Oh, so you went to a specialist and that's what they
Yeah,
told you
I
before
was
scanning you?
I was seeing a general practitioner, and he said there is something definitely wrong, and he referred me to a GI doctor. I went to the GI doctor, and the general practitioner told me to go to the GI doctor and get a colonoscopy and whatnot. And the GI doctor did not like that I asked for something
Right.
that he
He
didn't
didn't want
think
to
I
be told
needed.
what. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So he told me I had irritable bowel syndrome, gave me some Bentyl, and said, come back in 2 weeks, give it 2 weeks. And if you're still struggling, we'll investigate. I said, okay. And then it was just 3 days later, I started getting fevers and just, I was sick. And I called the GP, and the GP was like, you go back and you tell that doctor there's blood in your stool. And I said, but I don't see any blood.
He's like,
I
just tell him
didn't,
you.
I didn't know that blood, if you have colon cancer, blood it's just black. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't look like blood.
It's digested.
I basically went back and said, I have blood in my stool. And he said, well, it's your money you're wasting because I don't think your insurance is going to pay for this. And we did the colonoscopy. And I kid you not, I woke up during the colonoscopy because I heard a nurse gasp. I woke up and I opened my eyes and I said, what's going on? What is it? And she said, it's a tumor. And she pointed to the screen, and I said, a tumor. Oh, cool. Because, I was
Yeah.
pretty loopy and I went back to
Right.
sleep. Yeah. And then so they were pretty shocked when they ran into it. He said, because at the time I was running 3 miles every day
Oh my
and lifting
God.
weights and doing yoga.
And being a mom of four.
Yeah, it was because exercise was the only thing that like got me through.
Mm-hmm.
So I was I was basically like trying so hard to stay afloat with exercise, and he said, nobody with something wrong would be exercising like this. Like
Right.
you're eating fine, you're exercising, like yeah. So I remember waking up, everybody's around my bed, so sad looking.
Right.
What's going on? And I guess they had gotten the preliminary testing back before I woke up.
Oh, wow.
No, they didn't. They just said they found a tumor. It was still in pathology, but they're like, with that size of tumor, it would
Like
be
it's something.
hard to believe it's benign. So
Right. Right.
um, they took 34 lymph nodes around it, and those were being tested. So I got the news that it came back. They tested positive for cancer, but the 34 lymph nodes were negative.
Whoa. Okay.
So it was stage 2,
Gotcha.
which I
Which is
it
which is wild in the sense that like when you first started having symptoms, like you must have started having symptoms like when it was like tiny, like when it was like just
yeah.
barely there. I mean, because if you had it while you were pregnant, that pain,
Mhm.
and then I mean, how long was it from like when you had the first symptoms when you finally got like the colonoscopy?
Um, the doctor estimated that by the size of the tumor, that it would be at least 3 years.
Wow.
that had been growing. So um, the really cool thing is I was pregnant while growing the tumor,
Right.
right? Usually tumors will grow faster during pregnancy.
Mm.
Um, Mine grew, it didn't grow normal. Like usually colon cancer grows into the intestinal wall and then metastasizes all over. So that's
Mhm.
what when they were all sad because they
They
didn't
thought it
see
had spread.
how, yeah, they're like, yeah, there's no way that thing's like the size of a softball. I should say baseball. I think softball is a little bit bigger. But
Yeah, softball.
anyway,
Yeah.
it was fully obstructing, right?
Either way, it was a big tumor.
I was about to explode. I was just one steak away from
Right.
like
Right. Yeah.
um had it exploded, I mean cancer cells
Yeah.
everywhere. But like it grew encased in its own little um like sac, I guess you could say. So instead of growing outward, it grew inside of
Yeah.
itself
Wow.
and got
Okay.
bigger and bigger and bigger inside of a case. And the only reason I can think of that that happened is because I was pregnant. Um, I've just heard of so like the body will it
Does
wants to support the baby
right.
and keep
Right.
the mother alive.
Right.
So
They'll do these, like, crazy things to
yeah,
make both happen, yeah.
uh-huh. And so my daughter likes to credit herself to
For saving
I
your life. Yeah.
I saved your life, mom. Like you got pregnant with me. The tumor grew inside itself. You know, I sent out some more hormones to speed up the process.
Right.
It made itself known, and because I mean, I was 30 years old, I think 31. Um, I had like no risk factors, like not a single one that you would think to do a colonoscopy,
Right.
or no family history,
Like, didn't
nothing.
smoke, like, anything, yeah, nothing like that.
No, no. Um, so if
So
I
how soon after did you, like, have to start treatment? Like, did you go straight into, like, radiation, chemo? Was it both?
I did no radiation because they removed everything they could see, and they did in the CT scans. There were no other tumors found. So I did 6 months of chemo.
How was that?
So, eh, well, the chemo sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, it was disgusting. I would go in for a 5 hour infusion and then wear a pump for 4 days.
Okay.
And it was it was some pretty intense
Yeah,
chemo.
chemo wipes you out. It's
Yeah.
how is that, like, when you're, like, literally trying to raise a family? Like, did you have, like, a ton of help, like, going through this whole process? Like, how was that?
No. I I just pretty much kept on
Like, you just kept
just
going, just kept
yeah,
living, stopping
I
for
would
chemo, kept going.
I would get a babysitter for the infusion part,
Yeah.
but besides that, um I don't know. I think in my head it didn't really seem like I don't think like I consciously accepted what I was doing. It was just a kind of a blip,
You just
if
kinda
that
go
makes
into, like,
sense.
autopilot to just, like, kinda, like, get through.
Yeah.
How did I
Yeah.
mean, at that moment, though, like, do you remember, like, how that just, like, changed your perspective on life? Like, did it change your perspective? Like, can you talk about things like that? Like
Yeah. What changed my perspective the most was going to the cancer center and having chemo with people who were dying. And I felt like an imposter.
yeah.
Um, because
You mean because you were, like, generally, like,
I would go
okay
in by
in the circumstances?
myself
Yeah.
and pull
Yeah.
out my laptop and watch a movie. I was just honestly, I was dang excited to not have the kids around because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
intense,
You're like,
right?
Going on my chemo break, see you
Yeah,
later."
and I was like, I have a 5 hour period where all I have to do is sit in a chair and watch movies on my laptop. Like, I'm
Yeah.
good. And they'll bring me food. Like, this
Yeah.
is fantastic. And I generally went alone too, because
Yeah.
at the time, I always felt like I didn't want to impose on anyone. It's stupid now when
Yeah.
I look
Yeah.
back.
When you
I'm
look
like,
back, right, right.
that is so stupid.
But I mean,
But
like, but yeah, I understand like when you know, like when you're that age and you're so used to just like being independent, doing things on your own, like you're in your
mhm,
30s. Like, I mean, I try to put myself there, and I'm like, would I like be able to like reach out and ask for help? Like that's, I mean, so I get why like that would be something that's
yeah,
hard for you. But yes, like it's like when you look at it, it's like don't be silly, like ask for help, like.
yes,
Yeah, and especially like I work with, I mean, my first job as a nurse was in an oncology unit, inpatient unit, and I just like I would just like see like the just the effect it would have on people, and especially like since I worked inpatient, I mean they were, usually more like sick because if you have to be hospitalized for the chemo, I mean typically you're at higher risk or you're you
yeah,
know at like a higher stage of cancer or whatnot, but I have such a soft spot for patients that go through cancer treatment because it's no joke.
no. And with colon cancer, usually by the time it's found, if you're symptomatic, you've got 5 years tops, right?
Right,
Um, so, given the fact that I was only 30, my oncologist, she said we don't have to do the chemo because I think we removed it all. But basically, you'd be an idiot to not do it because uh, if we have the extra, like to wipe out everything, um, you know, given your
like why not?
age,
Right,
she said, I'm usually treating the elderly. So we have to decide if the chemo will kill them faster than the, the cancer.
right,
Fortunately, usually with older people, your cells don't regenerate as quickly. So the chemo will indeed like kill you faster than the
right,
tumor would.
right,
Um, Having that on my head and realizing that like I was in here for chemo to treat the what if the
right.
cancer came back. Um, that was I don't know why that was hard for me, but I it was hard to see the other people that did not that they were fighting to save their life
Yeah,
right now.
right.
So I don't know. I
Did
tried
you
not
have
to compare because
everyone's on their own path,
yeah,
their own treatment. I mean, did you have complications? Like, did you ever have to be like hospitalized for any of this? Did you ever have any like recurrences of the cancer?
none,
Nothing. Nothing.
nothing. I've had testing. The testing went from I did the chemo and then we did two CT scans 3 months apart from each other. I think colonoscopies too. And then I went to 6 months. And then I went to every year. And after 5 years, I went to 3 years.
Okay.
So
So you still go back every
yeah, I don't
year.
get scanned. I don't get CT scans, but I still get colonoscopies
Hmm. And
every
does that
3 months.
mean like so do your like does that mean like for your kids that they would need to be screened earlier,
Yeah.
than like an average person for it
Yeah, they have to start at 20.
at 20 for like with
Yeah.
colonoscopies?
Mhm.
Well, I'm
Yep.
sure they're just
So we
loving that,
had
looking forward to it.
well, only one of them has actually done it.
Yeah.
Jason did his um, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
You're like, "Welcome,
he
everybody. Welcome to my
he's
life."
good for like 10 years.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah.
but not the kids. Since I had colon cancer, they get to do it I think every 3 to 5 years, starting at
Yeah.
20. So,
Nice.
I just wanted to share an experience I had in the chemo when I was doing chemo. My mom came with me for an appointment, and I got up to go use the restroom, and this old man um, stood up, like his wife was receiving treatment, and when I stood up to go to the restroom, he's Southern, he stood up. I thought that was sweet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When I came back, he stood up again, and I looked at everybody's faces, and everybody was crying. And I was like, I looked at my mom and I said, "What happened?" And she said that the man who stood up um, asked how old you were. And I guess when he found out I was 31 and had 4 kids, he just lost it. And he was crying, and
God.
his wife, who was actually dying,
Right.
was crying. And just the um, what I miss the most about having cancer and having people know it is the amount of reverence
The
that
humanity.
that people had. Um, it, yeah, it was just it was like every person I met, um, they were they didn't have any walls. They
Right.
would say what they wanted to say, and hugs. I got so many hugs, and just
So you missed that, like, that
I
humanity, that connection, that just,
gosh,
like, that I had that was one of my questions for you was, like, if people treated you differently.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
thank you for
because
sharing that.
I have so the cancer, like I said, it seems like a blip. It was more
Yeah.
of an inconvenience
Yeah.
than, and it was scary. No, I mean no
Sure.
joke when I went through it. Um, but now I've got health issues that are debilitating,
Yeah.
and they're invisible. So nobody can see
Right.
what's going on. And I find it really hard to, like, if I miss something, people will be upset or like think that I'm rude or,
Right.
I don't know.
But if you had cancer, it would be like, "Oh, of course we
Oh my
understand."
gosh,
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
have cancer, people are just accommodating. And I'm
Right.
not saying I wish I had cancer so that
No. Yeah.
everybody would be nice to me. But what
No.
I mean is, when I had cancer, I could say, "Oh, wow, sorry I'm late. It was a busy morning,
Right.
whatever." And it was like, "Oh, no, we understand." But now, "Sorry I'm late. It was a busy morning." Well, I guess you just don't think that my time is as important as yours.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Right.
Like, yeah. And I
Are you
remember when I was first diagnosed, me and my mom and I were having a little rift. Um, I just called her and I said, "Mom, I have cancer." And it was like anything that we had been arguing about,
it's done. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
set aside. And we just, yeah,
And that it's to me, it's so it's sad that it takes those kinds of things, right? Because it's like as people, like we so often have these issues with our family, with friends, or whoever it may be, and it takes something like, you know, cancer to just like have people open their eyes and be like, like what is really important, like what are we all here for?
yeah,
And thankfully it's because a lot of times this happens when somebody dies, and it's like then you don't have that time to go back and like repair things that may have happened because they're gone and there's no time to really go back. So
yeah,
I I totally can like see what you're saying with having those issues with your mom, then all of a sudden you have cancer and it's like it just opens people's eyes. And I just don't
yeah,
understand, I guess, like why as humans we have to be that way.
yeah. And people would call me crying when they found out. I would literally answer my phone, "Hello," and they would, "Hi," and I would say, if you're gonna cry, I can't talk to you. Like, I cannot.
Right.
I understand everybody's upset, but I can't
Right.
handhold everybody through the news. Like, I'm
Right.
okay. We're
Right.
all okay. And I would say, I don't know if I'm dying or not, because in the early stages of cancer, you just don't know.
Right.
There's so
So,
much
yeah, you have
unknown.
no idea. Yeah.
But anybody can walk across the street tomorrow and get hit by a
Right.
car.
Right.
So like you're all just as vulnerable as
Right.
I am. The only thing different is that my vulnerability is,
Like staring you in the face. It's like
yes,
there. Yeah.
it's right here. But I wish that we could treat each other as if, like, if,
Like everyone had cancer, like, and yeah.
yes,
And I notice myself, like, when this happens to me at work all the time. I work in the emergency department right now, and the hospital I'm at is connected to a cancer center, so we get a lot of cancer patients. And every time, like with clockwork, every time I get a patient that's young, it's always the younger ones that like hurts a little bit more, like hits a little bit deeper,
yeah,
versus someone that's older and they've lived a good life. And cancer is always sad, but um, it always is just like so eye opening. Or somebody comes in with like a terrible car accident, and now they're paralyzed, and it's like in those moments, it's like, oh, like it opens my eyes, and I'm like, I should be thankful for what I have. I should be thankful for these like relationships and these people in my life. And then again, like I always am like, why does it have to take something like this so drastic for me to like be reminded of this like daily,
yeah,
And so yeah, like I totally get that. Like when you're saying like, why can't we all just act like we all like, like wear our mortality like on our skin, because it's true. You never know. Like you never know when like it's your last day.
yeah.
So thank
And
you so much for sharing that.
yeah, gosh, that was sweet. My brain just dropped off for a minute because I'm just thinking about um, what it would be like to um, be a nurse in an emergency setting. You know,
It's tough.
it's
It's tough, and I mean, a lot of times I find myself able to kind of like remove myself emotionally a lot of times, because you kind of have um, to a certain extent. You have to be able to kind of separate yourself from the things that are happening every day. But there's always just those certain circumstances and those certain patients that come in, and it just like hits you differently, because you're just like, I notice it's like if I put myself there emotionally, or if I look at somebody and I'm like, oh, they remind me of my mom, or like something like that, then it makes you emotional. You put yourself in it, like, and make it more personal. Those are the ones that kind of like affect me more. Or like I said, like when people are younger and they come in with like these life-changing things, like it just puts into perspective, like just like how lucky we are to just be able to like go through life every day and not have to deal with going to chemotherapy or literally like fighting for our lives. So
yeah.
yeah.
I I I wish that I could be a nurse.
Yeah.
I'm a yeah.
Do
It's
you though? It's
I do actually.
okay.
I've
Okay.
contemplated, but I know that with my physical limitations, like
Oh my God.
I would not be able to survive a hospital shift
Yeah.
without needing to sleep for 3 days afterwards. So
Yeah. I get that. I
it's
mean,
nurses. I mean, you guys have to work under intense conditions.
yeah, yeah. It's
So
pretty intense. And it's honestly like I do enjoy being a nurse. It's just like unfortunately healthcare is just it's gotten to a pretty bad place, and it makes it hard to just like be a nurse. There's so many other things like
yes,
stacked on top of it that it makes it hard to just like show up and be a nurse and like take care of people, which is why majority of nurses get into it.
yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
that's why I'm not going that direction
Yeah.
because I would want to be there, but I can't work myself
Yeah.
to the floor or I won't be getting back up.
Yeah.
So until then, like I'm the weirdo that gets excited when I see an ambulance or like
Yeah.
I'm a first responder to an accident. I'm like,
Yeah. Like what do we got today?
I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
That's why I love the
happened.
emergency department.
It happened a few months ago. I was on my way to Logan to go to something with my son. I don't know. I called and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be a couple hours late.
Yeah.
I got a lady
Uh,
on the road that was smashed by a semi truck, and we
oh
gotta,
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we gotta handle all this, and you know, anyway,
Yeah. Jeez. Those the things that happen in public, like thankfully I've only had to encounter a few, and they haven't been like too crazy. But it's a
Yeah.
lot harder out,
Oh,
like first responders. It's a lot harder out in the field to like when you don't have all your resources and things around you to like do things.
yeah. This
I,
accident was crazy because I was the the car was passing on the right side. You don't do that on the
yeah, passing like
freeway.
a seven. Yeah,
The big semi truck, little car. They didn't see her. They
yeah,
switched lanes and he thought he hit a like he had a flat tire or something.
like hit
He
an
wasn't
animal.
even aware that he had hit a car,
Jeez.
and so her car was completely under the their back rear, and I saw it happen, and I pulled off, but I had to run pretty far because we were going fast. I pulled over. I ran. By the time I ran back to the truck, the people that were behind them, people freak out, and the first thing they want to do is pull the person out of the car,
Right,
which you're not supposed to do that unless it's on
right,
fire or something. But
right,
apparently, they tried to pull her out, but she was smashed up in between the concrete barrier and the truck. The driver's side was gone. It was completely gone. So to this day, I don't know how they pulled her out of that. They pulled her out and put her in the passenger seat.
right,
So, but I ran up and I saw a bunch of people over the car, and I looked in the passengers or the driver's seat, and it was gone. And I told myself, Stephanie, you might see someone decapitated, or it's
right,
gonna be a bad. So,
right.
like
Prepare you.
I prepared myself, right? I came up and I asked the girl next to me. I said, "Where's the driver?" And she said, "Right there." I was like, the person in the passenger seat is the driver? And she said, "Yeah, we just moved her." And I was like, this woman was fully intact, not bleeding except for a few cuts on her arms where the glass had hit her.
Right,
She was obviously in shock, right?
right, right.
Um, but basically unharmed. And the driver's side was gone. And I just, to this day, I'm like, what?
Like how?
How?
Yeah,
How did that happen?
how and
So,
terrifying.
so when the ambulance came, they, put a brace on her and pulled her out through the sunroof thing, whatever. I don't know. It was crazy.
That's intense. That's an intense scene to come upon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
So
Uh,
I had to protect the driver of the truck because everybody wanted to kill him, and it wasn't
yeah.
his fault.
And it's
So
like, yeah, well, if the lady was minding the rules of the road, maybe
yeah,
it wouldn't have happened.
and he had an accent, so unfortunately, immediately they're screaming, "Don't let him run!" Why would he run?
Right. Right.
Because he's obviously here illegally.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Makes,
can someone connect the dots for me? Because
yeah.
it doesn't make sense. Anyway,
Jeez.
I digress.